Yeah, that's more than I was. I'm kind of doing this.
That's okay.
Here we go. Just had an executive session, now introductions of all present.
Ready to go, Mr. Secretary. Eric Bell, CVES.
Skip Terry. Introductions.
Very good.
Here, Paul Grace Gray, CVES.
Michelle Friedman, CVES.
That's lottery, CVES.
Okay.
We do have a couple of people online too, about to pull up the attendees. Looks like a Mr. McCartney and then a Mr. D'Amato.
All right. Okay, we're ready for the opinions and concerns from the audience. Anybody have anything you want to bring forth of consequence? If not, we'll move on to the next budget committee update. Dr. Davies.
Okay, so just want to thank our budget committee members. We had an excellent budget committee meeting a week or so ago. So I'm going to just defer to Mr. Bell to give us a quick update. But I will say that we all know that the financial outlook in the state and the nation is definitely affected by the pandemic. That's also relative to any potential stimulus monies. There hasn't been action. I know we've been through a presidential election. It's still being sorted out or finalized. So with that said, the outlook financially in the state, and this is something that we'll update on, is not good. The amount of revenue that our state has lost in comparison to where we were pre-pandemic is the biggest drop since the Great Depression. So just to share with you, but I will say, as positively as we can, that the North Country has not had as big a drop as many parts of the state. So we have been fortunate. I wouldn't say that I know in the counties that we're still affected. The sales tax revenue has dropped significantly, but I will say that the decline hasn't been as steep here in the North Country as it has been elsewhere in many places, but it's still significant. But with that said, the schools are very nervous. The state, and I will turn it over, Mr. Bell, in just a minute to you, but the state ed has withheld at the direction of the governor, in many cases, approximately 20% of a number of aids. Not all, but some. And I will share with you that there was no written memo about it. There was nothing in writing from the governor. So right now, it's really the verbal direction for this to occur. In order for that 20% reduction to be implemented, the governor by state law has to give the Assembly and the Senate 10 days to come up with their own plan and to make recommendations and present it. So before that 20% can be implemented, there has to be an opportunity by the Senate and the Assembly to weigh in and basically come up with their own plan. The problem is there's not a lot of money to make up for it.
Does that make a difference, excuse me, whether it's last year's money or this year's? Because some of the money withheld is paid from last year.
True. So the money from last year should have been there. In my uninformed opinion, okay, or at least as informed as possible, is that I think money that they're using from last year to help pay this year is kind of, they're viewing it from the right pocket to the left, and they're helping meet the expenses now for monies that should have been used for other things at the end of last year. So I think the bottom line is, before any expenditure gets approved by state ed and gets distributed to schools, it has to be approved by the governor's executive budget director. And I believe that's Jim Mojica. Yes. But so Mr. Bell, it has to be verbally approved, and it has to be personally approved by him. So in other words, any budgetary expenditure by the state at all has to be approved personally by the governor's budget director. So with that being said, the state aid in September and October was not reduced, but there are legislative and legal reasons why they could not reduce that money. So the schools did receive what was promised them in September and October. However, the August money and the end of the year, there was 20% cuts in numerous cases, amounting to hundreds of millions of dollars. So Mr. Bell, I've kind of set the stage. We did talk about that with the budget committee and explained really what the outlook was. The look back period ends, I believe, on December 31st. So Mr. Bell, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, we met on November 3rd. This committee really dives deep into our financials and our numbers and our trends, recons, as well as setting our budget. So I'm going to briefly touch on the topics. If committee members want to jump in, or anyone else, or if you have questions, we can go deeper. But again, a lot is covered at this committee. I'll start where Dr. Davey started, which we covered our budget development factors. Dr. Davey did share a PowerPoint presentation on the pressing financials for fiscal shape of New York State. We touched on it very well here tonight, so I won't go into any more detail on that piece of it. As part of our budget development factors, the tax cap, the allowable growth factor, as part of that tax cap calculation, is looking like it's going to be below 2%. As of right now, it is trending below 2%, and we're anticipating it will be at the end of the year. PRS has informed us that their employer contribution rate, this is the rate on all of our certified staff salary, is going to be between 9.5% and 10%. The current rate is 9.53%. So we're looking at a range from a negative 0.3% to a positive 0.5, almost a 0.5%. From a CVES perspective, what does that mean? If it goes up to the 10%, we're looking at $50,000 in increased cost for us for retirement costs. PRS similarly is going up. That's already been announced to go up to 16.2% or 1.6% increase. That's our uncertified staff. We pay that on every dollar of their salary. We're looking at that cost to be $75,000 increase to CVS. So as we're building our budget, we know it could be as bad as $50,000 plus the 75 or $125,000 added cost to our budget for retirement cuts. Positive, because we want to end with a positive on our budget development factors. Our health insurance consortium is doing well. And when I say well, I mean very well. So our September 30th numbers, we had unrestricted net assets of over $30 million. So that's a significant growth over the last year and a half of that consortium. Will set us up well as we're going into rate discussions. That's going to be critically important to help our school districts based on that rate setting in our consortium, and we're in a good financial spot for it. Again, we dive into our programs in this meeting. So I'm going to run through some of our divisional current year trends. So again, this was back on November 3rd, so some time has passed from these data points. And this was really a look back of our first 2 months of instruction. So CV-TEC enrollment averaging for 2021, that number was 576 students in our CV-TEC daytime programming. Our current enrollment at that time was 607 students. So we're actually educating more than what we're billing out the districts, which is phenomenal. That's what we want to see for our districts. Job target program enrollment is at 29 students, and that's down from 39 that we had budgeted for. So that is a little bit lower this year. And on a positive, right, our welding program is at capacity. So we have huge numbers in our welding program. It is our largest numbers of enrollment in our program, and it's doing very well. Special education division, 4 programs on 2 campuses. We're looking at 26 classes, 157 students, and we're down 12 students from what we had budgeted. And that is pretty significant because when you think of our special education tuitions, they range from the low $40,000 per student to a high in the mid $80,000 per student tuition rate. When we talk 12 students, we are down on the revenue side in special education. So we're observing trends in our districts right now. We are expecting, we have 5 to 6 students who have already, or CSE chairs have discussed with Mr. Slattery on adding them to our programming. Because some districts have chosen to not send them, thinking we may be in a remote situation. We also have some parents that have chosen to homeschool their children. Not even to get remote learning, they've just chosen to homeschool. So that's been some of the impact that we're seeing, but we're monitoring that closely in our special education division. ISC Manager Services, COSERS. ISC runs like a business. We're really focused on our bill as used. When the pandemic hit in March, our bill as used services went way down when you think of our communication department, print shop, and so on and so forth. We're monitoring those very closely, and Terry's doing well not to spend her anything that's not billable. She's not spending that money. We've expanded our COSERS. We are in a pandemic and times are tough, but we've expanded our COSERS in our specific area of technology needs for districts. IC stepped up to meet those. As of today, I believe we're servicing 5 districts, and we just kicked this off the ground July 1. So awesome work there by the team. This year, we restarted our labor relations service. We have 3 component districts in CVES. As part of that, our benefit coordination office to support the health insurance consortium. And we started to fill those positions. Tonight, the board will fill a benefit specialist position, and that office is to kick off and be running for central registration and billing of our consortium as of January 1. We also discussed ISC COSER participation and billing methodology for some potential changes from discussions with our CSOs, as well as some trends that we've been seeing. And we discussed the strong financial position of our capital project budget. I think that covers everything that we talked about. Happy to answer questions.
And any comments from our board member, Mrs. Saunders, from the budget committee, or?
You pretty much covered everything.
Not specifically to the budget, but when you talked about the book back, Mark, has there any, to the various dates that rolled around since last spring, with regard to rollback, were there any amendments or changes to that original state aid package at those various dates that came in somewhere in the
No, there has not been any change to that. The only thing that's been done is the withholding of that 20%. That is not a reduction at this time. So no, nothing formally has been done. Any other look back here?
Thank you.
Yep.
That's it. We'll move on
Yes, thank you.
to the next question. Strategic plan presentation.
Okay. So, Mr. St. Pierre, you're going to transition to our board members. I'm going to stand over there. I know you can see me on the screen, but I'm going to also transition more to the smaller one. So I'm going to stand, but I'm also going to try to keep my laptop with me. So we have laptop will travel. So I'm going to try to present from over here. So hopefully I can still keep an eye on what we're doing, but also present. So first and foremost, the board was provided actually in person a copy of this. So Mr. Rabideau, thank you for helping with that. So we did go a little old school for you to have the paper and pencil with you here, but everyone did have a copy as well in cabinet. I can't say enough for your work with Sean Brady again this year, because we continue to have really attention and support for this. But the strategic planning process has continued to be really positive as we move forward. So, Mr. St. Pierre, I will give kudos to the board for you to be able to move us forward. Thank you. Okay, there's a letter to our school community really acknowledging the continued attention and work on our strategic plan, even in the midst of a pandemic. We are still not only still trying, but we are delivering the highest quality education possible. And the work that's happening on a daily basis in our divisions by our support staff is as good as any work we've ever done. And if anything, more important. Why? Because our students need to continue to be engaged. They need to still feel that they are valued, and they need to know that there will be someday an end to this, and that what we bring and the skills they learn will continue to help them as we move forward. With that being said, we have been continuing to work very closely with our health departments, with our component districts, and to move forward simultaneously. St. Pierre. I would also say you can see a brief overview, the introduction, the guiding principles, our performance measures, and the divisional overviews. But again, kudos to our communications department who helped us put together and some great photos just to let you see a feel of what our school looks like as kids are coming. And I will share with you, our staff and students are glad to be here. I still think of that first day when I watched one of our special education students get off the bus with his mask and his backpack and skip down the sidewalk to the waiting staff who welcomed him with lots of encouragement. Okay. Also, I would share too, our mission, our vision, and our core beliefs are as important as they have ever been. And again, they serve as a taproot for us to really anchor what we're doing and how we're doing it, as well as for us to continue to be reminded about why we're here and what our purposes are about. Okay, kudos to our district planning team as well. I know Mrs. Saunders and Mr. Harriman have both been long-term members of our district planning team. We have two superintendents as well who are on our team as well, Mr. Osborne and Mr. Meyer. So Mr. Osborne from Shazy and Mr. Meyer from Boquet Valley. Okay, as well as all of our staff and administrators, and then our divisional teams. Again, a new process. It was a straw man process. Again, Sean Brady will be working with us again this year, or has worked with us, and the product has been amazing and supported. Okay, and as we move forward, you can see our 2023 priorities have been updated. There are a couple of them, as we discussed in our board retreat, that provided a little bit more emphasis. But again, we have our leadership priorities about dynamic leadership that we're continuing, especially not only to attract and support and develop our staff and retain them, but to also reimagine our programs and services and excel in our rapidly changing landscape. Our programs look different, but the core of what we're trying to accomplish is continuing to be evolved and improved. And our teachers are gaining the requisite skills every day to even be better so they can transition and still meet the needs of our students. Whether it's our CV-TEC remote day, or it's to our remote students in special education, or to be ready at the flick of a switch, like turning the lights off in this room for us to go remote. Our staff needs to be ready, and they are ready to do that. We also have our high quality programs and services, ensure our quality learning environment. And under that, you notice the support target is meet the expansive social, emotional, and mental health needs of our educational community. And that has evolved. Why? Because we understand that this pandemic is taking a toll on us all. There's COVID fatigue. There's the emotional toll that this has been taking on our communities, on our culture. There's been social dynamic issues that have been magnified. But I will share with you, it's affecting our staff and students at our core, because it is very challenging, and the unrelenting challenges that we're all faced with is having an impact. So it's important that our students continue to feel valued, as well as our staff. And lastly, that we provide that support for those staff and students as well. And simultaneously, we continue with this additional goal to continue to ensure and build a culture of equity, inclusion, and acceptance, so that our staff and students feel valued, that we recognize any cultural differences, any ethical differences, and that we warmly welcome and embrace those differences as part of the uniqueness of every student and the specialness that they bring. And I thank our staff, I thank our directors, I thank our administrators and the board for embracing that uniqueness of our students and really welcoming every student and staff member to our organization and wanting to support them. So I will share with you, as we look at our performance trends, you can see the 16 through 20 performance trends as well. The data, as we looked at our strategic plan and our survey data, we had the highest participation rate ever. We go back to the beginning, 7 years ago, for those members who remember when we did that first survey, We had 110 participants. This past year, I think we had, was it 259? I think it was it 249? I think it was 259.
Wow.
We had almost all of our staff, when you think that we have 330 full-time staff. And to think back where we only had 110. So we had roughly a third. Now we're well beyond 2/3. So with that being said, the data does show a lot of progress in many areas. And you look at the targets, but there are still areas to work on. I know that in our board retreat, we actually looked at the culture and supporting our staff, especially addressing any bullying or harassment that's in place or that's occurring. You can see some of the numbers of what we had previously and the progress we've made. But even with that progress, there's still numbers that are concerning that we will continue and we are continuing to address and we're trying to work on. And Terry will talk a little bit about that as well, but we want you to know we're using this. It's not meant to be a punitive survey, but it's meant to identify those areas so we can continue to work and really focus like a laser beam to make the progress we need. You also see the communication about the board. You see about people who feel safe at work, and you look at the progress. And if you look at going way back, for where it says % agreeing that the decision made by the board was regularly communicated, for our board members who were with us way back in that first amount, that first number was 17%. For our new board members, that meant 83% of the staff felt they weren't being regularly communicated. So we've made a complete flip on that, and we've continued, then we evolved the question. Mrs. Saunders, I know you were on that survey committee, and the committee and Mrs. Saunders and the DPT felt it was time, based on the progress we had made, to evolve that question and make it a little bit more accurate to reflect our needs. Again, there's growth. We were up to 84%. There was a belief that we were already on track for that 90%. So we needed to fine tune that measurement so we could really measure the progress and get at the heart of what we're trying to accomplish. And lastly, you also see the dynamic leadership that's happening even within our central administration and focus. So really it's the old approach. You know, you've heard maybe some of the mottos, leave no man behind. Well, in this, or no child behind. In this case, we want to leave no one in our organization behind and make sure we move forward to embrace and address all the needs. Okay, go ahead, Mr. St. Pierre. So as we move forward, and I know Terry will provide an additional update about our instructional services as well, our Instructional Services Center, and the progress that we've made there. Mrs. Friedman as well with CV-TEC and the amazing progress. And this year, in spite of a global pandemic, our numbers are as strong as they've ever been. And it's just amazing. And I don't think I would have ever heard Mrs. Friedman say, we can't accept any more students.
Just in welding.
Just in welding. And in welding currently, we are at capacity. But it also goes to show you that the quality of our programs, and we have a national award-winning teacher who is delivering, like many of our other teachers, at unbelievable levels, even in spite of trying to change his dynamic approach to teaching. And I would also share that our hands-on approach, especially with a cohort of full-time instruction for 2 days a week for our CV-TEC students, has been amazing. Really dynamic. I look forward to hearing all the updates, and I look forward to sharing those updates with you. And lastly, in special education, again, our staff is as dynamic and committed as they've ever been, and they're continuing to service the needs of our campuses' students, and doing so in an exceptional manner. And Mr. Slattery has been a great addition to our team as well, and is working well with our administrative team and our new administrator to really transition and continue to evolve our instructional methodology so we're meeting the needs of our students. So now I'm going to pass the baton, Mr. Friedman, to you.
Thank you, Dr. Davey. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to leave it on the previous slide, Alex, because with the depth of the CV-TEC division, our individual divisional improvement plan is 7 pages long. We're not going to go through them all. But the 4 indicators that are on this particular slide encompasses all of the work that will be done in those subsequent 7 pages. So those 4 indicators really give us some metrics on our overall enrollment, further into the plan, you'll see the delineation between post-secondary students and high school students. We already see the metrics on here for national work readiness. One little note, because the trend for this year did decrease, I want to give you a little caveat that we began the actual divisional testing of the national work readiness credential in February. And it's a 4-part credentialing exam. We've never got to do the subsequent testing. If a student passed 3 of the 4 parts, they can go back and retest on the 4th part and so on and so forth. So that number was the first administration, and we were never able to complete the rest of it. So there is a reason for that decline. We believe that had we still been live and in person and doing what we normally do, that number would have met or exceeded the metric from the previous year. And then the other metrics there are the technical endorsement and the students that participate in our One Worksource Adult Literacy Job Skills Training Center. So the subsequent 7 pages is a result of, and you can move through them. I'm just going to give you the highlights. As you look through them, you'll see each individual metric and then the work that's going to be done by the 5 corresponding committees that are comprised of every single member of the CV-TEC division is involved in one of those 5 committees to move those metrics forward. And one of the highlights that I will bring up is in our marketing, on our marketing committee. We had to do a complete 180. We can't bring schools in. We can't bring the 8th graders in. We can't bring the 10th graders in to sell ourselves. So we are actually working with our business and industry partners in the real estate realm to teach us, and Alex is working with us on virtual tours of our programs. So like if you were gonna go look at a house, you could go room by room and do that. We're gonna go classroom by classroom, click on the welding gloves, click on this. So we're in the process of doing that. So those 7 pages in that plan will give you very, very detailed insight as to how we believe we're going to meet the metrics that are a part of this plan. It keeps us honest, it keeps us moving forward. And because of it, I think we've been able to really take on some of these unimaginable challenges that have come our way, particularly because this allows us to work as a team in a common goal and really celebrates the individual expertise and talents of the people that are in that division. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share with you. If there's anything in those 8 pages that you have questions about, I'd be more than happy to give you more information.
Thank you. Very good.
Okay, next up, instructional services. Just looking at our metrics, one of the things you'll see is COSER subscriptions went down. Part of that was due to a merger. So when we put East Elizabethtown, Lewis, and West Forest together, we lost, I think it was 16 subscriptions. So that was a thing that would cause us to go down. So we're expecting, and we're reconfiguring, we're actually adding new coasters. So Alex has been very successful in the instructional technology coaster, I think it was mentioned earlier. So we look forward to growing that. I think we're now at 5 districts, and we just got this letter, when was that, yesterday or today? So Oakwood Valley is the latest member who's joined us with that initiative. So we're excited about that and moving that forward. And we're really just talking about reshaping ourselves and changing ourselves up. So anyway, we do surveys. We don't do surveys every year because we don't want to overwhelm our districts, but we will take another survey, but we try to limit, how often we do those for those people. Because again, it is a lot of work and time, and I think our superintendents are sick of seeing surveys right now. But anyway, that's good. In professional development, we think professional development is going to look a lot different in the future because of the ability to do things, to do business differently. So we weren't as optimistic in the fact of numbers, but it's more about quality instead of quantity. So we want to make sure, even last year, we were very particular about the training we offered. And so we offered a lot of training from national level providers. who the districts are very happy with, and they'd rather pay for that and the better than pay for small ones that may not change or move their needle, right? So that's something we did deliberately last year and we're continuing to do. We actually have some coming back in this year to do some remote and virtual. So that's good. Technology, again, just making sure that we are meeting the needs of our organization. So that's something we always continue to strive and do better with. So we're working on that. And then the number of PD and events being offered to support the SEL component, that is something we continue to do. It's been difficult this year, but we're trying to do things within divisions and across our organization. It's not necessarily PD, but it's like engaging them in some activities that sort of build some of that. So we've been working on that. So quickly, just going through, Alex is going to, and I'm not sure if anybody's timing me because I don't know between 2 and 3 minutes, but you'll see our plan there. And again, as Michelle said, we just outline the work that needs to get done, who's going to be responsible for it. A lot of ours are ongoing just because that's our work. Like we always say we have 24 little businesses at ISC. That's really what they are. So we have to continually just get feedback from our customers and make sure we're delivering. And that's the biggest piece of all we do, whether it's internally within our organization or it's within our district. So anyway, we don't have lots of pages like Michelle, but we got enough work. So, but that's the thing is always just being able and flexible to meet the needs of our districts. So when we get that call, whether it's a district clerk, the superintendent, and whether it's a bus driver, we can actually point them in the right direction and help them, not feel as stressed because there's somebody on the other end who we're going to help them. So, and that's what we do each and every day. And we just make sure we're directing people to the right. And I will say we're getting a lot of stressful phone calls. So I will say Angela and April and people on the front lines and probably the front lines of your office, just people are tired. They're frustrated. They're at wit's end, right? A lot of times. So we're trying to help them navigate this because their kid got sent home and they don't want them to get a test and they don't want them to do this. And I say, none of us want to do this stuff, right? None of us want to wear a mask. None of us want to socially distance and not be with family and all those things. But right now, we're trying to protect everybody. So I just say kudos to them, kudos to our nurses, and kudos to everybody for, keeping us open. And that's what we keep telling people every day. Every day is a gift that we're in person, and we need to be appreciative of that, and hopefully we can continue to do that. That's mine. Any questions? Sorry, I took it down. Okay.
So, and I also noted that I'm monitoring the chat. So if anyone has any questions that are virtual, you can raise your hand or put something in the chat as well. Okay, so Mr. Slattery.
Thank you, Dr. Davey. So the special education division, I think we have about 4 slides on here. I just want to start by saying that the strategic planning process is so important. Any organization, be it CVES, whether it's their 7th year of doing it, it's pretty remarkable. The process has stayed true to its tenets, with Sean Brady being the facilitator and being able to do it through that straw man process and do it remotely. Really didn't miss a beat. That consensus building really put the best product out there, targets for our division. So with that, you'll see we have a lot more footnotes on this slide than we have had in previous years. Those footnotes are directly related to the pandemic. So that first one talks about the New York State alternate assessment. And a student, overall average score of our students. That was not given this past school year. As a matter of fact, no state assessments were given after the Regents administration in January, so that's not applicable. When you look at that next grouping, a major goal of ours over the past couple of years, I know we have 2 years worth of data, but it really started 3 or 4 years ago. We invested a lot of time and resources in professional development for our staff. And when it comes to IEP writing and really connecting goals to needs. You'll notice there's 2 lines on there. I just want to explain that. We are making good progress in it. And as a divisional team, we talked a lot about that metric and how it's really important that we're getting down the information that we need to drive the PD side of things. And at that point, we decided it was our best interest to reach that goal. We had to change the metric. So really what we did we changed the denominator of that factor. So instead of the denominator being the total number of IEPs, where provider may not receive credit for meeting that goal if one those goals of the individual child was not met. Say the child had 7 goals, so now we're encompassing all the goals overall on those IEPs. So you can see we applied it both with the old metric and the new metric for this past school year. You can see a difference of 71 to 90%. Transition planning continuing to go really well. We have a board coordinator that oversees that for the entire vision in both campuses in Lineville and Plattsburgh. When it comes to social emotional learning, more important now than ever before. We're really proud of that first metric of 67%. That's a 67% decrease. The number of physical interventions needed from the first quarter instead of the fourth quarter that had to be ended last year at the end of the third quarter. So looking at that, we take our top 10 students identified by data and then track those 10 to the end of the school year. So we saw a 67% decrease, which is huge. Our reflective practices of circle ups continues to go very, very well. You can see our metrics there. As a division, we really talked about increasing the number of circle ups that we want to hold. This is a minimum that we're doing right now per month. We talked about increasing staff circle ups to 2. We thought this year wasn't the year to do that because of the pandemic, so we're going to hold off on that. We're going to maintain it this school year and then look at increasing it next school year. This action step is really, really important to us as a service provider that specializes in the North Country. So we're talking about redefining brand or rebranding current and new programs. So how we communicate with our component districts. Terry mentioned it a little while ago. There are our partners, there are our customers, so we need to be a little more nimble with how we're able to meet their changing needs, especially in this current landscape. So that's our process that we're currently utilizing right now, and ideally we'll continue to utilize it. Maybe at the end of this school year, I can share some of those end products with this group. Our next slide, a little closer here, talks about, and again, creating another process for our shared decision-making committee to really personalize the professional development for our staff. So as a special education division, we have a very, very diverse group of staff members, over 200 members strong, and each one of those members has different needs when it comes to professional development. We have some that we do across the division, like our TCI initiative, but then after that, we really need to personalize those needs. So we've already administered a survey that outlines our process there. When it comes to writing high quality IEPs, and that last slide I mentioned connecting needs to goals. We're going to look at finding a tool. We're going to work with the partnership with the state ed department, measurement team, that we can utilize in that quality assurance process. And then again, our transition planning really is second to none in the region. That's because we've dedicated resources to that process. Can't say enough about the importance of transition planning for our students in post-secondary success. Slide, Alex. And then again, we have a great partnership with Dave Melnick out of Vermont, who really is I don't want to call him a regional expert, really a national expert when it comes to trauma-informed care and practices. So we have our Catalyst group, which are the Spark Plug committee that really is charged with creating some clear objectives this school year on how to bring best trauma-informed practices into the classroom. And we have some of those outlined below for the title of Restorative Justice. I keep going down the list. That third from the bottom, implement monthly meetings. So as a service provider in special education, a lot of our students have complex caseloads in terms of multiple providers working together. We've identified a need of those providers to meet regularly. It's very hard during the school day to find that time. So this goal has been pushed back, to the following school year. We're really hoping to connect that to a shift the start and end time of our school day. And then after that, really those last two have to do with our school counseling model. Currently, we're working together to develop a K-12 comprehensive counseling program that really identifies how we serve students for a multi-tiered approach, and also a consistent curriculum across both campuses. And that concludes the fourth slide. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out or pass along to Dr. David. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slaughter. Any questions?
All right, last group, so central admin and O&M. We have a new metric. You'll see on the top line, we started tracking our full-time employee retention. We did feel some pain in 2018-19. And as a committee, we discussed that we had a significant number of resignations, staff moving from CVES to other districts. And it was something that we said we want to measure in 1920. We created the metric, and now we're going to be working to act upon those metrics. Recruiting has strengthened, and it is going well. I feel like we're doing a great job recruiting staff here, and now we really want to focus on retaining them and finding ways to have staff stay here. Skipping down a couple lines, our CVS new employee orientation there, you can see we're at 53%. That's been a very high focus or a priority item that we've been trying to get people in. We've developed a second new employee orientation, so a mid-year one. We've done it for 2 years. We did it in 18, 19, and 19, 20. You can see the numbers really haven't improved, even by offering more opportunities. We've had 26 out of 49 new hires attend in 19, 20. That's already hit the 53%. In August, we just had one thing we said, maybe if we do it virtually, we're going to get better numbers. We had 12 out of 23 or 52%. And for your information, we email them, we send them a letter, we call them until they deny that they're going to make it or not. So they're very well informed of when it is. We also pay them to attend. So that is not the case in all districts. We even offer them payment. So our numbers haven't grown. So we're actually looking at different ways of bringing it to them, such as when they are hired and they come in for new hire paperwork, we give them some of this information knowing they may not attend. Keeping an eye on that and seeing ways we can improve it. Next slide, we're looking at maximizing the use of Microsoft 365, maintaining strong employee recruitment. We're also looking at succession planning for some key retirements. Not looking at anybody in particular, but we do have some key retirements in leadership positions at CVS that could be retiring this year. We're working on succession planning there, and that's going to be a big focus of ours, so we don't lose momentum in the growth that we've been having. We're looking at beginning an exit interview process this year. We will. We're not looking at, we're going to start that process. Again, this is to help that employee retention, find out why people are leaving, get feedback from them, see where we can improve. Benefit coordination office starts January 1st. That process has been ongoing already. And then O&M has a major focus right now on meeting and exceeding the COVID-19 requirements, guidance, procedures to keep our facilities clean and open. Next slide. We are looking to support professional development for our employees to help them grow and learn, and again, also to try to help with our employee retention. And we also have a future year goal we put on here, and that is to provide more training on managed services, items such as like HR items or accounts payable items, the purchase order process, to continually offer trainings to people who may not know all areas of our organization. So we're working on that as a long-term goal. And then our last slide, we are working on maximizing. We took a big push on the employee assistance program. Last year, you see signs here. We worked closely with our ISC communications team and really pushed that out to staff, and it was highly used. We want to continue that, but also show them there are other mediums that are available to them, whether it's through our health insurance provider, Empire, or another company that are free and available to our staff. We want to make sure people are getting the supports when they need them. So that's a focus of ours this year. And lastly, and importantly, continue to communicate and lead the capital project efforts to completion. We're coming towards the end of our project. We're really in the middle of it, construction-wise. We're about 3 to 4 years into this process, from planning, the designing, the voter approval to the then further designing, now construction. And now we have about a year of construction left for this part of the project. So really get that to the completion and keep those communications going to staff. Questions?
Any questions for Mr. Bell? Okay, so I'm going to just give a final couple of highlighted points. First, we have traditionally shared with you our DPT planning calendar for the year. You see that again. You see that we'll have check-in with our DPT in December. We'll have a DPT update in January and then a board mid-year presentation. One of the points that came up in our board retreat was that during our strategic plan update, I believe every other month, there wanted to be a check-in for our equity, access, and inclusion, which would include updates about our training for our staff, as well as our bullying and harassment and those issues. So we will be integrating that as part of our monthly check-in. And in addition, during our different updates that are planned, but so that we will make that part of our updates as well, so that the board, we will have integrity and pay attention to those requests as well by the board. Okay, so you can also see the rest of our plan dates, including a wrap-up, a survey administration, a DPT presentation at the end of the year in June, summarizing the year's progress and results, as well as draft planning dates for next year. I did share in the transmittal and even a recent update that our outstanding facilitator, Sean Brady, is actually planning on retiring after next year. He's been with us now. He's been with us 7 years. Next year will be his 8th year. Been an amazing support for us. We do want to transition. We've put a lot of time and energy and commitment into this process. We believe it's very valued. It's not contingent upon any one person or any individual, but it's more about the organization and moving forward. And so that's something we will live what we talked about, and we will fulfill that obligation as well and continue to evolve in our plan and work with our cabinet, with our DPT, to come up with a good plan in the board of how we'll continue to supplement and support this process as we go forward, so that we keep its integrity, we keep the transparency, and we keep implementing at the highest levels. So you have our commitment as a collective team, as well as our organization, to make sure that we will continue and are supporting this process as we go forward. We believe it's that valuable.
Is there an option for finding somebody to replace Sean down the road that does the same kind of stuff?
There is. Yes, and Sean does have a unique process. For those of you who worked with him, you know, he had his clicker where you could support and then rank things and so on and so forth, but there are other facilitators out there. I do think Sean had a phenomenal skill set, but that's something we'll make that part of our process. And lastly, I just want to take this opportunity to thank our board for your continued support in this process and initiative, as well as our cabinet team who's been tireless with all the other things going on. They still made sure that they committed the time necessary to be really involved and lead their own divisional plans and implementation guidelines and action plans for the year. And by setting that example, you know, you hear the old analogy, the speed of a train is tied to the speed of the engine that's leading it. Well, these are the engine leaders for our CVES train. And they're the ones who are setting the pace for our own teams. And they've been helping lead this process consistently over these years. And with your support, we will continue to have that implementation successfully. And our staff who are supporting the process and helping our students benefit from it along the way. Are there any questions, Mr. St. Pierre?
I know that at one point in the past, we mentioned the danger that this process goes away, the lack of interest. I think that you've done a really good job keeping the interest level up, which is kind of amazing, because I know we hear about these things. It's a great idea for a while, and it disappears. So very thankful that you folks have done it. It's still going strong, which says a lot for what we do. Thank you for all that.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for everyone. And I think the key is that it continues to be a living, breathing document that's updated and has important parts of our work moving forward. You look at our capital project. That was a strategic planning initiative that we supported as well. So as things move forward, when we look at our other pieces as well as the evolution in our culture and our training and the other things that we've been doing each step of the way, we've been tying it in, and we're continuing to make it an important part of what we do on a yearly basis. So thank you.
Very good. That is the end of the strategic plan presentation.
Well, I have one thing. I want to thank leadership for only 3 TDDs. There's only 3. You all remember the TDDs? But I am going to be looking into the ongoing.
I knew you would say that. Yeah.
They do, they lead
You
it
can take
and,
it up with the next person.
well, let you go without a promise, Terry. They lead an incredible team, and the reason, Mitch, that this works is that they lead, all their staff gets to participate. So everyone is invested in this.
That's what makes it work.
Yes. Amazing, thank
We
you.
have a capital project up.
So could I just make one final comment?
Sure.
And this is just in follow-up to your comment about finding another person who could support the process, who may be intimately knowledgeable about it. I think even in this own room, there might be someone who might be able to assist us if we move forward in a particular way. As a consultant in the future, just suggesting that, planting a seed.
Don't mention any names.
We won't mention any names, but just something to think about as a potential option.
There we go. All right. So I guess it is time for the capital project. Eric, you're up again.
Excellent. So last time, Mr. St. Pierre, last update. So at the main campus, our contractors are scheduled to be done almost all of our punch list items by the end of December. They've been working on them on second shift. We're on holidays. There are a couple items that will linger past it, including bathroom fixtures. We currently have temporary lights in there as we search for resolutions on that. And there's certain tile replacement, tile that's been rejected and will have to be fully replaced. We're gonna have to do that next summer in order to not interrupt our instructional environment. Other than that, we are planning for the rest of the punch list items to be done in the next month and a half. Our current focus of construction, and we are during working day shift and having heavy construction, is at our satellite campus in the south building. So right now, we worked on the mezzanine structural fixes. Those have been completed. The work has been done, and now they're addressing header support in some of the open areas. They're pouring slabs to support our second floor structure. We're working closely with NICEAG, Tetra Tech, and Schoolhouse on new electrical services to the building. Our big thing there is we're looking at a full building generator. So if power does go out and we have 300 people in a conference, that we can have a generator backup in the facility. And we're also looking at future second floor space that would take up power too. We want to put in the right amount of power as if we had a full building, second floor completely outfitted with offices. So that's ongoing right now. We meet with NICEAG actually tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have a transformer figured out and have that all squared away so we can progress. We have discovered some roof leaks in the building. So we're working on resolution to that. But our construction team has spoken to us about potential roof replacement at this time. We are putting a significant investment underneath that roof, and we need to protect that investment. So we're looking into resolutions to that. Currently, the site work on the campus is complete for the season. They will come back in the spring and summertime to finish up, and that was by design. We didn't want to lay down all new asphalt at the campus and then have a bunch of construction vehicles coming all winter long and into the spring. So we're going to finish up our site work in the spring, summertime of next year. At the north building on that same campus, the exterior canopy is to be done and the exterior doors are to go in. So those doors are actually arriving next week. Mr. Carney, I know, is on the horn. So those are arriving next week, as well as the canopy is intended to go in over the next couple of months before winter really settles in. In Mineville, The fiber line is underground, the conduit, the trees have been removed. We gave Dr. Stay a call after I checked with Mrs. Friedman, gave Dr. Stay a call, and the environmental conservation class on there did take care of those trees for us within 48 hours. So the trees were taken down by our students, and then the fences to be installed around our playground starting on Monday next week. And then that'll wrap up the work on Mineville for the season, and we'll prep for heavy construction down there starting in June, beginning with asbestos abatement, and then moving into the construction of the windows, doors, and the new office secure entry vestibule in Mineville. So that'll be our primary focus over the summer. And lastly, our infrastructure mini capital project, you recall we put a water line in over the summer, that was completed. The exterior doors to our CV-TEC classrooms, those started to go in on Monday. On Monday, they had installed 2 doors. Tonight, they're still working, they're working night shift on those doors, and that is ongoing and expected to be completed in the next few weeks. So that'll wrap up our mini capital project, and that's my capital project update.
Sure, and I'll just add too, is that I am a regular participant in the weekly update construction meetings with Schoolhouse Construction, Tetra Tech. Mr. Bell does facilitate that. I do weigh in, and he generally will brief me on important items ahead of time. We also, there are recommendations that are coming forward for follow-up, including a number of those recommendations were even at today's meeting at 8 o'clock. So very thorough, very attentive to the detail and to the progress. And I can say, like any good organization, issues come up. If you can deal with them in an open and frank manner and also address them as soon as possible, it's much more effective. And our team has done that. It's not all great news, but sometimes when there are issues that come up, by having everyone put their heads together, it's really benefited our organization and the success that we've been continuing to see with our capital project. So that good communication, good leadership, and attention to those details is getting good value for our money. So I want the board to be acknowledged, or at least be aware that those efforts are being maintained at the highest level to make sure that our work is moving forward successfully, and keeping our administrative team aware. So there's been nothing happening that is coming their direction that they're not aware before it arrives and what the impact will be, which I think is really key. And our staff has been phenomenal too. When there have been adjustments needed, they were willing to step in and make and work with us to try to make it as implementing success as possible. So I thank Mr. Bell and our team for doing that, and the board for your continued support.
Okay, so we're done with all the updates. Ready to go on to the rest of the meeting. Give motion for the minutes. Motion. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. 9, new business, and again, kick in a few things here. So we're moving toward G. No, we're to that later. That's the other 2. Okay, so writing, line. Yeah, no. And see, 9A is it's actually supposed to be 9B.
Should be 9B and 9C.
Actually, we're gonna do 9A before we do.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Those carried. Now we.
So I just want to pause for a second. Did we skip over the approval of the district strategic plan? I know we approved the minutes, but I think we just want to go back and make sure we do that.
We just did, that's what we just did,
Oh, I'm
9A.
sorry, I thought you were doing.
No, I did 9A.
We just did 9A.
Oh, yeah, we just did that.
So in the addendum that's labeled 9A is actually 9B, and the
Yes,
one
correct.
that's labeled 9B is actually 9C.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So 9B. Let's see. Oh, it should be B and C. That makes more sense, okay. Recommend the board appoint Julie Walker.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Okay, Mr. St. Pierre, if I could just acknowledge, this is the confidential secretary to the district superintendent, replaces Mrs. Jackstaff, who I know that there we acknowledged her service previously, the critical role as someone who will work on a day-to-day basis with Mrs. Rabideau as a team, and is also the deputy board clerk in Ms. Rabideau's absence. So we're so pleased to welcome Ms. Joliker to our organization and want to just really offer her the warmest welcome as she starts. And then we'll be working to transition with Mrs. Jackstaff, who has agreed to help really provide good training for her as that transition is implemented. So I want to thank Mrs. Rabideau too for her support and involvement in our interview committee, as well as Ms. Calabrese Gray and Mr. Bell in the process as well. We had a lot of applicants, showed the quality of our organization and the quality of the position, and we had exceptional candidates, and we're very pleased to be welcoming Ms. Joliker. Thank you.
Okay, guys, looking at the board appoint the following persons to the regional civil service appointments.
Okay.
Emily, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so now we're gonna do the consent agenda. Motion.
Second.
Motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Full business is no action. We remove, order 19 on the consent agenda. Is there action on all business?
No.
That's just about committees. Audit committee meeting highlights, information. It says action over there.
I explained to Mr. St. Pierre, that's just a typo.
Okay. Yeah, it's,
Information.
that happened. So I need a motion on the consent agenda first.
Motion will be left. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Mr. St. Pierre, could I just jump in now for one more minute?
Okay.
So on the personnel agenda, I'd just like to thank our staff who, you just approved a number under enclosure 13, resignations for retirement. We traditionally pause for a minute to recognize the diligent and faithful service of our staff who've done exceptional work over many years. Ms. Sharon Squire, teaching assistant, has been with us 21 years. Susan Torville, teaching assistant, has been with us 33 years. Rebecca Garrow, teaching assistant, has been with us 33 years. Mr. Paul Webza, special education teacher, has been with us 32 years. And Ms. Patty Delisle, job placement aide, has been with us 15 years. So with those 5 people, they total 133 years of dedicated service in our organization. So I just want to congratulate them and thank them for their dedication and service over those many years. So could you, and wish them well in their retirement. We see they're not leaving until later this year. So we know that we recognize their dedication and heartfelt work on behalf of our students and our component districts to make a difference and make our organization better every day. Thank you.
Okay. So go to 13, order 27, records retention schedule resolution. Motion. Second. All those in favor? Aye.
The enclosure, memorandum of agreement between, WW and the, material employees.
Motion.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Carried. All ready for the district superintendent's update?
Okay, thank you, Mr. St. Pierre, and I'll be brief, but I do want to just acknowledge several items, and the board is continuing to meet in a hybrid model. We've also shared in our transmittal that the governor's executive order that allows our virtual participants as well as our in-person, the hybrid model is continuing, so we're appreciative of that as well. Our staff have been doing an amazing job, our administrators, to implement in-person learning as well as a hybrid model, where students do have remote instruction as well and those options. With that said, our component school district likewise have been working very hard to make this occur. I want to recognize our staff, our nurses, who are going above and beyond. We can't say enough positive about our nurses and the work they're doing, and the support and all the documentation. Every day when people come to work, they need to sign in and do their check-in with their badges, which is they're acknowledging that they meet all the conditions to be in school and be present. We're then implementing and gathering all the data of all the students who are out, and Mr. Bell and Ms. Calabrese-Gray is working with the nurses to gather the data and our directors to submit the state reports. So, for example, yesterday we had 38 students out. We had in Plattsburgh, we had 3 in Mineville, and we had a couple of staff members. But on any given day, some of those students or staff could be COVID positive. We've been very successful since the start of the school year. We're in our 11th week. We've had 1 positive case in our BOCES, so thank goodness for that. We do have a chart that showed the tally as of earlier today, which showed that in our BOCES in Clinton and Essex County, between students, remote students, and staff, there have been 16 cases. We know that for any of those individuals, that's very serious, and we wish everyone a full recovery, but we've also want to acknowledge the work that's helped us keep these numbers low. So with that being said, it really is something that I want to just not only acknowledge, but thank our staff for helping make this happen, and thank our parents for working with us to make this possible. Because without everyone working hard to implement and all the time and energy that went in, we would not have been as successful as we've been able to maintain. With that said, ongoing support is continuing. We will continue to keep the board updated. Just an acknowledgement, our next board meeting would be December 9th. We have been focusing on being in person with a hybrid model, and we've been continuing to maintain here at the ISC. It also allows our board members to join virtually. Unfortunately, traditionally, December is our holiday dinner. So with that said, unfortunately, we won't be able to participate in that type of environment and celebration this year. But we will.
Maybe in May.
There you go.
So we'll do our best as we move forward, but we just want to acknowledge that December 9th, again, we will plan to be here in Plattsburgh with the virtual option for our board members. The strategic plan, again, thank you for all your support and moving and going forward. We will be updating the board on the different initiatives as well in our meetings in the annual updating report each month. And we will be adding our equity, inclusion, and acceptance focus as well every other month as part of those annual updates. And lastly, I do have a district superintendent's meeting coming up next Monday and Tuesday. Again, we're continuing to be kept informed with state ed and work closely. There's a lot of things happening around the state with the yellow zones and the number of cases that are happening. So I want to thank the board for your continued support. We will keep you informed. One of the areas that we've been working on, and we did provide information, I want to recognize one of our statewide facilitators, Ms. Calabrese-Gray, who actually, and did take a picture of her engaged with statewide participants the other day from her office in Plattsburgh. She was leading the statewide forum on substantial equivalence. And with that, so Terry.
We all should have been there. It's a lot of fun talking to non-publics about one. Substantially equivalent to a public school.
But Terry, we know that she's an outstanding facilitator. In many cases around the state, you have your religious schools. We do have the Catholic schools, St. Mary's and Seton in our own BOCES. We do have some Christian schools. We have some private schools. So we do have some non-publics that this is applicable to. The local boards do have jurisdiction about approving those plans. So that does fall back on the boards. There's also some requirements that the state are asking us to meet. So we want you to know that we've got our own in-house expert, but also we will continue to keep you informed about that as well. So just want to acknowledge that, and we will give you other updates as well as we're moving forward. And both NISBA, which is the New York State School Boards Association, as well as rural schools, and the superintendent's organization are generally providing training and virtual training to help all of us be as effective as possible. That's the update that I have, but I do have one final acknowledgement, and Ms. Ganyu Horn is actually on our phone due to some technological difficulties that we've identified. I'd just like to, Ms. Ganyu Horn, and if you're still there, I want to acknowledge that you had shared this evening, right? Yes, a gift for all of our board members. Ms. Ganyu Horn, and you also provided a Christmas card for everyone as we're heading into the holidays. You've traditionally done this too for the board, and I thank you for your holiday spirit and your generosity, because you've continued to demonstrate why you were recognized on the rural school board as being a dedicated and giving board member, and you did the same here. So for the board and on everyone's behalf, I'd like to thank you for that.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. Give Ms. Ganyu Horn a round of applause. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank all of you and wish you all a happy Thanksgiving, and thank you all for your service and dedication to our children.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And it was fun.
So Bruce, do you want to end the meeting? It's your turn.
I will do that. Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we got a second from Richard. All in favor? Aye. Carried. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, everyone. Right.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Right, thank you.